Darwin began a voyage on the Beagle in 1831. He went to South America where he made a very important observation that has changed science drastically: evolution. Based on the organisms there, he concluded that species vary locally, globally, and through time. They vary globally because similar animals lived in similar environments, even though they were far away from each other. He noticed that they vary locally because certain animals that were different but related live in habitats within a local area. He noticed they vary over time because some fossils are similar to animals living in the present. Darwin was not the only scientist with theories of evolution.
Darwin was influenced by several other scientists. Lyell noticed that geological processes in the past are the same as they are now. This helped Darwin realize that if the Earth can change, then organisms can too. Houghton said that Earth was millions of years old, which helped Darwin's evolution theory because now it was known that there is enough time for organisms to evolve. Malthus said that if the human population growth proceeded unchecked, then we would run out of food and space. This made Darwin think of competition between animals and how they also have limited resources. In artificial selection, nature gives natural variation, and humans select and use the traits that they find useful. Compared to artificial selection, in natural selection, nature, rather than humans, select the best traits.
Natural selection happens when more organisms are born than can survive, there are natural variations, and when there are differences in fitness among individuals. Common descent is the belief that all species are descended from ancient common ancestors. Distribution patterns and fossils also help explain the concept of evolution.
Distribution patterns help us tell how modern organisms evolved from their ancestors. Also, fossils show the process of evolution from extinct ancestors to modern organisms. Evolution explains the existence of homologous structures adapted to different purposes, resulting from a modified descent from a common ancestor as well. Even at the molecular level, homologous molecules and the universal genetic code support evolution. After Darwin's visit to the Galapagos Islands, a family named the Grants studied the finches there. They found that variation within the species increases the chances of the species adapting to and surviving environmental change. Evolution is a change in allele frequency in a population over time. The three main sources of genetic variation are mutation, lateral gene transfer, and genetic recombination during meiosis. The number of phenotypes for a trait is decided by how many genes control it. Single gene traits only have 2 or 3 different phenotypes, but polygenic traits have a lot of different outcomes.
In single gene traits, natural selection can lead to changes in phenotype frequencies. In polygenic traits, natural selection affects the fitness of phenotypes and produces 3 types of selection: directional selection, stabilizing selection, and disruptive selection. Directional selection is where individuals at one end of the curve have a higher fitness. Stabilizing selection is where individuals near the middle of the curve have the highest fitness. Disruptive selection is where individuals at the outer ends of the curve have a higher fitness. Genetic drift is a change in allele frequency due to chance occurrences. Genetic equilibrium is where the allele frequency does not change. And according to the Hardy-Weinberg principle, the 5 things that can disturb genetic equilibrium include non-random mating, a small population size, immigration and emigration, mutations, and natural selection. Aside from evolution, new species form through reproductive isolation.
Reproductive isolation happens when 2 populations do not interbreed anymore. There are 3 types of reproductive isolation. Behavioral isolation is where the 2 populations have different behaviors that cause them not to mate with each other. Geographic isolation happens when the 2 populations live in different geographic areas. Temporal isolation is where 2 populations mate at different times. These can be demonstrated with the Galapagos finches. Speciation has happened as a result of geographic isolation, changes in the population's gene pool, behavioral isolation, ecological competition, and founding of a new population.
A molecular clock uses the rate of mutations in DNA to estimate how much time has passed since the 2 species have been evolving independently. New genes evolve from the duplication and then the modification of the existing genes. Small changes in host genes during embryological development can result in large changes in adult animals.